Using different phone systems and devices to manage your practice is a headache. Open Phone makes it simple with a single app that brings your business calls, texts, and contacts into a single place across all your devices. Activate your 7-day free trial and get 20% off your first 6 months when you sign up at openphone.com/Joe. Again, that's openphone.com/Joe. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1029. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we talk about how you can build a thriving practice you absolutely love. And really, our goal is both those things, that you're thriving, you're doing well, you're attracting the clients you want, you're making the money you need to make, but that also you absolutely love it, that you've created something that maybe brings together a lot of things that are unique in your world that you enjoy, that you think are interesting or good for mental health. As I think about our next guest, we're going to be talking a little bit about his practice. I've gone through periods of time that I've worked out more than other times. I did Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Body, where it's like, 4 hours a month, you do this like high impact lifting. I did that for a while, and then the pandemic hit and I stopped, but then I did this like 10 minutes like HIIT workout, probably every other day during the pandemic. And then when we went on the road for 9.5 months living in a camper, throughout the pandemic, there was so much just natural life lifting and moving things that I didn't really work out a whole lot other than hiking and lifting RV crap. But then when I got back, I was planking like a minute or two a day, but I've really fallen off the wagon when it comes to working out. And Brendan, we're going to talk about how unique his practice is and how it blends a workout facility and a counseling facility. We're going to dig into that a little bit today. But to me, I was just thinking, man, if my therapist had a workout facility there too and was supportive of that would be a different kind of therapy for me. So I'm really excited to dig into this with Brendan Kelly. Brendan's been working in the field of mental health since 2003. In 2011, he and a colleague started the Wellbeing Counseling and Fitness Center, and they've been using the combination of traditional outpatient counseling services and regular physical exercise to treat commonly occurring mental health issues. The Wellbeing has its own fitness center on site and its own dedicated fitness professional on staff. They have gone to great lengths to remove as many barriers to exercise as possible in order to help their clients be successful. He's also down in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is just 2 hours south here. Brendan, welcome to the Practice podcast.
It's great to be here, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was supposed to be having dinner in Grand Rapids tonight at the time of this recording. My daughter had an appointment down at University of Michigan's satellite campus, but she had so much, and at the time of this recording, it's the end of the school year for my daughter. I think it releases in July, but she had so many things last minute that came up with school that we decided to push it out to September. So I'll be back down there in September at the latest.
Well, yeah, it'll be good to have you in the city of Grand Rapids. Traverse City is great, but Grand Rapids is pretty good too. So lots of good dining options here for sure.
Yeah, you guys won Beer City of the Year like multiple times.
Yeah, like every year we do, and our office is located like almost kitty corner to one of the best breweries in the city, the Mitten. So it's nice to have after a long day of work for sure.
Yeah, fitness, counseling, and beer, the trifecta of a successful practice.
Yeah.
Well, Brendan, I want to go back to, so you started practicing in 2003, but then in 2011, you started the Wellbeing Counseling and Fitness Center. Tell me when you had the idea of blending fitness and counseling together.
Sure. So I think in order to do that, I kind of have to give you a little bit of, my life prior to that. I played sports in high school, and then after that, really just stopped everything. I became very, very sedentary when I went to college. and remained sedentary for years afterwards. And one of the issues that I was dealing with was that I was a smoker, a pretty heavy smoker. I was smoking like a pack or so a day. And anyways, I found myself in my early 30s, in really, really bad shape, and decided I needed to do something about it. And so and I needed to quit smoking. And so I quit smoking and I started to go to this gym. And the first thing that I noticed, and I didn't know why at the time it was happening. I later found out why, but what I noticed back then was that on the days I went to the gym, it was easier for me not to smoke. It was noticeably easier. Not necessarily easy, but I didn't crave cigarettes on the days I went to the gym as I did on the days I didn't. And the reason that I later found out was because I was triggering this release of dopamine when I went to the gym, which is essentially what is released when I smoke cigarettes. It's that reward
Mm,
that is served to our brain when we we do something like we smoke or we drink. It triggers a release of dopamine. So I'm craving cigarettes. I'm kind of craving that dopamine release, and I'm getting that release from exercise. So that was the first thing. But then the other thing was I noticed I was so much more productive and focused at work. If I exercised before I went to work, my day was markedly better. I was way better at, writing notes. I was way more focused, than on the days when I didn't exercise before work. And then I just noticed my mood was better, my energy was better, and all these things, right? And then my supervisor at the time, I was working at this place here in town called Arbor Circle. He like kind of turned me on to the all this research that existed back then. There was a ton of research already that was out there that showed, that exercise was really this valid and effective form of mental health treatment. So I started to dive into that, and what I started to read like essentially like validated my own experiences, like mirrored my own experiences. All of a sudden I had like this scientific basis. Here's why I'm feeling better, why I'm craving cigarettes less, why my focus is better, all of that. So, I started to get to the point where I was talking to clients about it, even, hey, this is something that you can do for depression and whatnot. So, anyways, I was in a meeting at Arbor Circle, like a staff meeting, and my supervisor gave me this article about a female therapist in New York City who had a treadmill in her office, and she would get her clients to run, during her therapy sessions. And my first response to that was like, "Wow, that's a really great idea. Wow." But then my next thought was like, I couldn't picture somebody running and crying at the same time, right?
mm.
Right? Like it
Yeah.
just those two things to me, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, those are very separate. I just couldn't see how exercise in a session fit. And so the thought that came after that started all of this was, well, why couldn't I take a traditional outpatient counseling practice, add a room, and fill it with equipment, with exercise equipment? And that was
Mm,
it. And all of a sudden, my brain went into hyperdrive and it just started spinning and spinning. And the more I thought about it, the more it just made sense. And then I started, to talk to some key people in my life, and they all said the same thing. Wow, that makes sense. And then a year and a half after that, we opened the doors to the well-being in June of
mm.
2011.
I would love to hear that kind of infrastructure building phase because it's one thing to start a practice, and there's a lot that goes into just starting a practice. And then when I think about adding exercise equipment, exercise liability, just the space for that, doing it well, my impression without knowing that industry is that that could get really expensive really quickly compared to just getting a couch and a couple chairs in an office. Like, take us through that early stage setup. Like, what did you have to think through? Like, there's obviously extra things beyond just what a typical starting a practice would be to add that whole exercise component to it.
Sure, sure. So my partner at the time, Timothy Perry, a former colleague of mine at Arbor Circle, it was he and I that started the well-being. And Tim and I are, he's since basically retired. I've bought him out of the practice now, but we're very different. Tim is very frugal, so we really started things off on a shoestring budget. Our biggest expense, so we had to have we only had two therapy offices to start. We later kind of added a third into our space, but we had two therapy offices to start and a couple of restrooms and a nice lobby area. And then on the other side of our practice, like directly connected right off the lobby, was this kind of wide open space. And it was really nice, kind of had these big glass windows or whatnot in a pretty private area of our city. But that was where our original fitness center was. And basically, what we did was we started off by leasing two good commercial grade Precor treadmills and a commercial grade Precor elliptical machine, which we still have to this day. They're still they're still operating, thankfully, because those pieces of equipment are not cheap. But the lease that we got, it was like a lease to own, was really, I mean, it was manageable. It was, definitely doable for us from a financial perspective. So essentially, the financial cost at the outset was doable. And so yeah, and then we had some weights. It was a pretty minimal basic setup. But that, from that we've grown from there. And now at our current practice, we have an office in the front and then this big warehouse space in the back of our practice. It's 18-foot tall ceilings. We have now a rowing machine and a couple of exercise bikes and kettlebells and a weight rack, and we have certainly added on. But yeah, to start, it was a pretty bare bones operation.
Mm. Now, are there people that come just for the workout facility, or do they have to be doing counseling as well?
They have to be clients. So we do have some group fitness classes. We have some yoga classes throughout the week, a couple of boot camp classes, and those are open to anybody in the public. Partially because it's hard to get good numbers of people to come. So we at this point it's open to the public, but to come in and use the space like a fitness center on your own, you do have to be a client.
Mm. And so, do people tend to do it like before or after counseling, or do they come just on their own time in addition to counseling?
So that's the interesting thing. There are some that do come and use it on their own, and there are some that do come and they'll work out before their appointment or after their appointment. But honestly, the numbers aren't there's not a lot of people that are doing that. I think partially one of the reasons is that we draw clients from all around the Grand Rapids area. So for somebody who lives 15, 20 minutes away, to drop in, it's pretty prohibitive, especially when they can join a Planet Fitness that's 5 minutes away from their house for $10 a month, right? So a lot of people just kind of, a lot of our clients, like do things on their own. A lot of people have, equipment at home, maybe a bike or a treadmill that for years was, down in the basement acting as the clothes hanger in the laundry room or whatever, or they have a bike in their garage they haven't ridden for years. A lot of our clients, have been making what I call the monthly donation to, the YMCA or to Planet Fitness, paying that fee every month, fully intending to go, and then month after month not being able to get themselves to go on their own. So basically what we do is we work with our clients. Every client sits down and meets with Mike Zimmer, our fitness director, and the two of them create their exercise treatment plan. And essentially, that's like who, what, where, when, and how are you going to exercise? And we come up with a detailed plan, and it's like whatever works for the client. If you want to join Planet Fitness, great. How many times a week are you going to go to that? Do you want to come here? Do you want to come to some of our group fitness classes? Do you have a bike at home? Like it's not, we encourage people to come, but it's not like a mandatory part of our practice.
Mm. Now, for those that are exercising regularly with your practice, what sort of outcomes, and I don't know how much you're tracking this, but first, I guess, are you tracking it? And if so, what kind of outcomes are you seeing, either qualitative or quantitative?
Yeah, currently we're not really tracking it right now because as I'm sure you well know, that can be a lot of work to do that.
Yeah.
We have done like surveys in the past, and clients report, a lot of them report significant improvements in their mental health. Not everybody, and I think that's, what I want to say is that, what research has found unequivocally is that physical activity and exercise is on par as a form of mental health treatment with counseling and medications. It is as good. There was a recent meta analysis done by some researchers from the University of South Wales over in Australia, who found, according to their data, it's 1.5 times more effective than medications. So, long story short, it is just as effective, but it's not a panacea.
Hmm.
You know,
I remember I was at the U of M, University of Michigan depression conference they put on every year. This would have been back when I worked at the community college, so probably 2017, 18, somewhere in there.
yeah,
And the keynote speaker, and it was a bunch of psychiatrists, counselors, people that were involved in higher ed. And he said, traditional counseling, medication, and exercise, when you look at those three, we know that the research supports all three of those together being the best combination. But if we were to eliminate one, like, which in your mind do you think is probably the best to eliminate to get the best outcomes if you had to eliminate one? And he said most people would think exercise, and same sort of thing where they actually had found that the combination of counseling plus exercise was more effective with most patients than the combination of counseling and psychiatric medication alone.
yes, I've seen that as well. I've seen that, that research as well.
As a therapist, I can tell you from experience that having the right EHR is an absolute lifeline. I recommend using Therapy Notes. They make billing, scheduling, note taking, telehealth, and e prescribe incredibly easy. Best of all, they offer live telephone support that's available 7 days a week. You don't have to take my word for it. Do your own research and see for yourself. Therapy Notes is the number one highest rated EHR system available today, with a 4.9 out of 5 stars on trustpilot.com and on Google. All you have to do is click the link below or type promo code Joe on their website over at therapynotes.com and receive a special 2-month trial absolutely free. Again, that's therapynotes.com and use promo code Joe on the website. If you're coming from another EHR, Therapy Notes will also import your demographic data quick and easy at no cost, so you can get started right away. Trust me, don't waste any more of your time and try Therapy Notes. Just use promo code Joe at checkout. What are you doing October 1st through 3rd? I want to hang out with you just south of Nashville, Tennessee, down in Franklin. I'm going to be keynoting the Mental Health Marketing Conference, and I would love for you to be there. We are also sponsoring the clinical track, where there are going to be tons of amazing trainings, all for you in private practice. This is the national gathering for marketers and clinicians in mental and behavioral health. You're not going to want to miss this awesome conference. It's the one conference I'm keynoting this year, and you can read more over at mhmarketing.org. Also, Steve over at Mental Health Marketing has given 25% off to any practice of the practice listeners that want to come to this. Whether you're coming in person or online, you're going to want to use promo code Joe at checkout to get 25% off. I would love for you to come in person for my closing keynote on Thursday, October 3rd at the Mental Health Marketing Conference. But if you can come online, that works as well. Can't wait to hang out with you in Tennessee. Again, that's mhmarketing.org and use promo code Joe at checkout to hang out with me October 1st through 3rd, 2024. So, knowing you have a group practice, do your staff get involved with exercise as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the challenges that we're facing. I don't know how it is up in Traverse City or elsewhere, but I know that, it's a tough job market out there right now for hiring new staff. And it's even more difficult for us because, like, this is, we need our people to really, like, be passionate about this, about our concept. And really the way that, a person is going to be passionate about it is if they're doing it themselves, if they are regularly physically active and notice the difference on their own, because then it just becomes easier for them to, like, get behind and support our program. They can talk to their clients firsthand about their own experiences and kind of speak from that place of, passion and, and belief. And so everybody that's on staff right now are all to some extent, regularly physically active. And we do during our week, we have some group fitness classes during the day that are mostly attended by staff, and that's fun. We have a yoga class on Tuesday that's mostly staff. A couple other people come, and then a boot camp class that's probably half staff and half people from half clients, and it builds out like this real sense of like team chemistry and camaraderie when, especially boot camp, when you go and you get your butt kicked for 30 minutes together,
Mm-hmm.
and come out and like you're just feeling good, and kind of patting each other on the back. And yeah, so everybody here firmly believes and is passionate about what we do.
Now, one thing that comes to mind is, dual relationship boundaries, things like that. If you end up, working out by clients or in a group like that, like, are there any situations that you can point to of how you guys have worked through that?
Well, the way I see it, I mean, is that it's kind of the same thing as if you run into a client at a restaurant, right? That you don't like initiate a conversation with that person. You sure as heck aren't talking about anything that you've talked to that person about in your session. So really, I mean, it's like it would be like if I went to a fitness class at say Planet Fitness or the YMCA and had a client there. I don't I don't see any difference between that and the same thing here.
Yeah, and what other kind of liability things did you have to think about in your paperwork? Is there anything that's like, hey, if we run into you at the gym, or like what sort of just sign offs do you have?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, we have a waiver form that people sign to use, to use our fitness center. So like you would have to sign if you went to say Planet Fitness or the YMCA. That's basically it from a liability standpoint. And then of course, the insurance piece, having to have that in there too.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, what do you think it's done for your marketing to have kind of your own unique approach? Like, I'm thinking about, art therapists or play therapists that work with kids. To me, it's much easier to want to refer to that kind of person because it's more kid friendly. Or, like my daughter who sees a therapist, sees someone who focuses on teens and tweens, and she has bean bags in there, and she has, often kicks her shoes off, and the counseling is often on the floor or wherever the kid wants to sit. Like, to me, that engages teen and tween girls way differently than, your traditional setting. So their marketing is easier. What do you think this has done to attract your ideal clients
Sure,
more?
sure. So what I'll do is I will read you an email that just came in yesterday through our website, right? And obviously I won't give any personal information, but I'll just read you the email that I received. This person wrote in and said, "Do you take Blue Cross Blue Shield? I need you all in my life and love this style and approach. I want to exercise more as one of my goals. Please tell me you do telehealth. I'm all the way in Detroit. I'll make a Grand Rapids trip if I have to." We receive emails like this on a pretty regular basis. Now, this one is pretty extreme, but we receive emails and phone calls from people on a pretty regular basis. And we have since, the get go, from people who are genuinely excited to come to this place. Like people who are like, "Oh my gosh, I just found out about what you guys are doing and I want to be a part of it. This is exactly what I'm looking for. This is exactly what I need. How do I join?" And I always think like I don't know if other counseling practices get that same level of like enthusiasm from the initial concept. Like I don't see other counseling practices like, "Oh my God, you guys do EMDR," or "Oh my God, you guys do, ACT or CBT. I need to be a part of that." Like I just don't see it happening. Maybe it does. All I know is that while we're not for everybody by any stretch, our approach resonates with people, and a lot of times people are truly excited to come and be a part of this because they recognize, like, I think on an intuitive level, this connection between, hey, I've been really sedentary and inactive, I'm out of shape, I'm whatever, and my mental health is, I'm struggling with that as well. And they see that direct connection, they just kind of feel it, intuitively. and then they come across our program and they're like, holy cow, here's this place that can provide me with counseling or therapy like I would get elsewhere, but then also will get me to start moving and help me develop a plan and a program for that, and hold me accountable to that. It just resonates with people.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's one of those things that, um, when we look at what it takes to be a stronger human, there's so many hobbies or things that we just put on the back burner, and exercise is one of those. And,
Sure.
um, just to take this concept and to think about, what are the things that you are good at, that you enjoy. My therapist, he has middle path counseling, and they have a whole room that they host meditation retreats in, and yoga instructors, rent it out. And so finding those overlapping things that, from your point of view, help, and not just your point of view, the research also, um, help remove barriers for clients, I think is so important, and also, helps your bottom line too. When you think about growth, when you think about scalability, I know you have a thriving group practice and you've got a bunch of staff. How do you think through what the next, say, year to 5 years look like?
Yeah. So, we've been at this for 13 years, Joe. And while we've had this great concept since day one, the actual application, the practice, the execution, I should say, of that concept, we've really struggled with for a long time. There was just there seemed to be this piece we were missing. Like there was just something missing. Like we were doing well, we were doing okay, but like there was this piece that was missing. And I'm not going to say what that piece was because it's vital. Like we figured out that piece was, and now that we know what that missing piece was, now I feel we are ready to really start to move this practice forward. So we have a
I
plan.
gotta ask you. I know you just said you're not going to say what it was. Like,
I know, and I wish I could. I'm really kind of paranoid. I've been paranoid. I'm just, we're this small little podunk practice in Grand Rapids, and I fear like some larger entity with tons of money will, like, oh, here's how you do it.
oh
Right?
no.
I know. So I can't. As much as I would love to tell you, maybe I can tell you on the side, after this podcast. But yeah. So we have a plan. We're looking at really growing and expanding over the next few years.
Hmm.
So
Well, you
yeah,
got to protect if you find those things, I guess. So
yeah,
I can
yeah.
respect that. So from one
Proprietary
business person to
information.
another.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, the
yeah.
last question I always ask is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
I would want them to know just how good physical activity and exercise is as a form of mental health treatment. It helps with depression, it helps with anxiety, it helps with stress, trauma, ADHD. It helps with like the majority of mental health concerns that we encounter as therapists. And it doesn't just help. As I mentioned, research has found that it is at least as good as counseling and medications as a form of treatment for depression. So the way I see it, for therapists to leave exercise out of discussion with their clients as a viable treatment option is akin to a physician leaving out counseling as a viable treatment option for their patients. But one of my favorite things about it is that it's really simple. If a client is interested and currently inactive, all the therapist has to do is help them figure out, a way for them to like get their heart rate up, ideally into the target heart rate zone, and keep it there for about 25 minutes, right? And a quick Google search will help you learn how to figure out a person's target heart rate zone. Because around 25 or so minutes of moderate physical activity is what it takes for the body to start releasing all these great neurotransmitters, which are the things that help us, feel better and oftentimes significantly. And if a person does that 3 times or more a week, that can be gold. But then the other part is that, we as therapists are in a great position to provide accountability to the people that, sometimes need it in order to get moving. Because we see our clients on a weekly basis. So we can help our clients come up with a good plan to move their bodies and then get some good doses of exercise in that week. And then when we see them again, we check in and see how the plan went. If the plan worked, great. Like, how did they feel? What difference did it make? Right? How did it impact their mental health? But if the plan didn't work, well, that's fodder for therapy, right? Like that's something, we can talk about, like what happened, what got in the way, was there any sort of like problematic thinking or behaviors that interfered with that? So we're in this great position to provide people with the support and accountability that so many people need to make this change from sedentary to active an active lifestyle, and doing it for the betterment of their mental health. But mostly, I just want all therapists to know that it just works. It's an incredible form of treatment. I love it.
Mm, so awesome. If people want to connect with you, learn more about your practice, where should we send them?
So our website is www.grwellbeing.com. So that's well, WELLBEING.com. Or they can send an email to info@grwellbeing.com.
So awesome. Thank you so much for being on the Practice of the
My,
Practice podcast.
my pleasure, Joe. It was an honor and a privilege.
Well, that inspires me to want to do more than my planking and my walks, and to take it up a notch. That's something that we all fall off the wagon sometimes. So that's a great reminder to just start moving my body even more. Speaking of moving your body, I'd love for you to move your body on October 1st and head down to Tennessee. I'm going to be keynoting the Mental Health Marketing Conference, and also we have the clinical track, which is sponsored entirely by Practice of the Practice. And so I'll be doing some trainings on solo and group practice down there as well. The Mental Health Marketing Conference is going to be in Franklin, Tennessee, October 1st through 3rd. And it's about 30 minutes or so south of Nashville. I'm going to hang out with Steve Turney, who runs that, and a bunch of other amazing clinicians and businesses that market and help therapists in a lot of different ways. So make sure you check out the Mental Health Marketing Conference. I'm going to be there hanging out. Would love to hang out with you. Also, I just got an email this morning that let me know that they are taking 25% off the ticket price for any Practice of the Practice listener. Just use promo code Joe at checkout, and their website is mhmarketing.org. Again, that's mhmarketing.org. So excited to be keynoting that and to have this connection with Steve and with all those folks that are putting on the Mental Health Marketing Conference. So again, that's in early October. Would love to hang out with you down in Tennessee. A beautiful time of year down there if you haven't been down there. Also, we couldn't do this show without our amazing sponsors. Therapy Notes is our sponsor today. Therapy Notes is the best electronic health records out there. All my biller friends say that Therapy Notes from the back end is easiest for them compared to a lot of the other EHRs that are out there. So if you're frustrated with your EHR, they will actually help you transition all of that sensitive client data over to Therapy Notes. They have a whole team that helps with integrations and all of that. Just go to therapynotes.com, use promo code Joe at checkout to get a couple months for free. And thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. We're doing this 5 days a week now. So make sure you tune in regularly for the shows that sound interesting to you. Thanks again. Have a good day. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.